Degloirespace signing in. Telling yourself that you have worked it all out and that you understand it all and that you get it and then what you're doing is always correct has a major flaw in your life. And I've seen people who approach other people like this. So when you're trying to communicate with them, they know it all. They have the solution to everything. You look at them, their life is all over the place, but they can look you in the eye and they can tell you, no, I know what I'm doing. And you look at them and you're like, okay, all right, there's nothing I can do for you. They're in money problems, but they'll look at you, they'll ask you for money, but will they help themselves? No. They're in relationship problems. They tell you they figured it all out, they can understand it all and all that, but do they accept help? No. So don't be that person. The flaws of it are obvious. And one of the major flaws is your future. The more you prolong admitting to yourself that you have an issue, that you don't get it, that you need help, the more you prolong that, the more the problem will grow. When I was younger, I had a friend of mine, and this friend of mine was very much hooked to marijuana. He used to say to me, I'm not addicted. And he'd look at me because I was very athletic, very fit. So of course I stayed away from that kind of thing. And he'd tell me that I can quit anytime. And then I wouldn't really say much, just let him do his thing, And he'd look at me and say, you don't like it that I do that, do you? And I used to look at him and say, hey man, it's your health, your life. And he said to me, it's easy, I'll leave it like that. I remember a week later, he comes back and he says to me, I'm addicted. And I said, what? What's wrong? And he said, I'm addicted. Of course, in my brain, I kind of knew that he's addicted. Like, it's not, if you're smoking something every day, highly unlikely you're choosing to do that. And he said to me, I tried leaving it for 2-3 days. I couldn't. I had to have it. And that was the start, the opportunity. He of course, unfortunately in his life, he couldn't stop that. He'd stop it for maybe a week or so and then he'd just fall back into it when he hangs out with his friends. But the starting point was to admit that you got an issue. And of course with addiction, that's easy. But what's worse than addiction is things like when you think you've understood life and when you're talking to people, you're giving them, I'm spiritually there. Oh yeah, everything is, the whole world, I understand it. There's no difference. And, you're all that deep spiritual stuff that you've read somewhere. Just because you've read it, you think you get it. Sometimes we read something, it kind of sits well with us, but just because it sits well with us, it doesn't mean that we've actualized it. But there's a lot of people that, you probably see them, they follow a particular scene. So there's like a new age spiritual scene. When you're in that scene, people talk in particular ways. And when you talk to them, they kind of give you this, yeah, we're all one, we're all this. I remember a particular person who would say things like that. She was a teacher and she'd say, nothing makes me angry, nothing makes me upset. As long as you're alive, that's the gift, smile, be happy. And she'd talk like that, literally. First time you see her, you think, wow, this person's really at peace with themselves. I had the privilege of working with this person. And let me tell you, the kind of things this person would say, these kids are like animals. They got no respect, these kids. And she'd go into that kind of phase. And in my head, I'm like, hey, I thought 10 minutes ago you were like, they're just kids and, you're one with everything and everything makes you feel at peace. And, of course, I wouldn't say that to her because it's not socially intelligent. Like if I tell her, didn't you say that? What's my outcome? But it's just important to notice it because when you notice it in other people, you might notice it in yourself if you do that too. Where sometimes you read something and then you start believing that you have become this thing that you've read. Now the problem with that is if you haven't actualized what you've read, you've just shut yourself off from learning. You've just blocked yourself off from progressing because suddenly you know it all. And you're part of a scene now, I am this and I am that. And what have you done? You've officially now shut yourself off. And that could possibly be one of the worst ways that people stop their learning, stop from moving forward in their life. You have an opportunity right now. You've just met someone who knows something that you don't. Instead of you admitting that you don't know it, you want to show them what you know. You want to talk bigger than what you are. Your intellect might actually understand these things. So your intellect might have read about things like spirituality, non-dual, yin and yang, the Zen and all that. You might have read about all that. And it might make absolute sense to you. And you might be able to regurgitate a lot of it back. But you need to be honest with yourself. You need to be honest and say, okay, I thought I was at peace with myself, but and I've got no more anger in me, but this person made me angry and I can't seem to let go of that anger. There was a person, I knew them when I was a child. I lost contact, and then there was a funeral where we reconnected. And this person remembers me how I was when I was a child, when I was a kid. Now, me, ever since I was a kid, I was always that guy that people came to and spoke to. I was just that guy that kind of coached his friends, gave them an alternative view. I was just that guy. I'm not saying I was smarter or anything, but it just seemed to be my personality. So that person, remembers me being like that. We're talking, and she's just trying to show me how much she understands life. Now, of course, I'm no longer 10 or 12 to be naive. For me, when I identify such words, I know that all of us struggle. Every human being has struggles. Doesn't matter how big you think you are or how well put together you are, but we all struggle somewhere. But she's making it out to seem like, hey, I'm really like, I really get it. And we met up and we decided to go on a walk in nature. And as we're walking, she says, I love coming here to smoke. Of course, that to me is a first sign. You're smoking, hey, it means generally there's something behind it. We don't have addictive traits out of nowhere. So she said, is it okay if I smoke it? I was like, yeah, it's okay. And I said, I'll go for a walk somewhere else. You do your thing there. And she did. And I went for a walk, came back, and this person's telling me how they're like one with the universe and all that. And of course, slowly, that kind of talk really gets to me because it's just empty talk. Anybody could claim anything about their inner world, and you looking at their actions, you kind of know where that person's at. So I'm looking at that person thinking, that person needs help. When she's talking about herself, she's talking like she's figured it all out. She understands better than counselors. She understands better than psychologists. You know, that's the kind of talk that she was saying. When someone's like that, there's nothing you can say or do to help them out. That's it. They're telling you, I've worked it all out. There's nothing for them to learn. A few issues came to surface. I found out that this person was involved in some crime. Found out that this person was heavily involved in other drugs, heavier kind of drugs. I found out this person is now depressed. If you ask me what it is, it's because that person is closed. That person thinks they've worked it all out. That person thinks that they've reached a peak, and that peak has now become their hell. They're stuck in it because that person can't look at you and say, man, I don't understand. I don't know. The moment you get to that I don't know, you are now ready to learn. You are now ready to change. You are now ready to do something new. You are now ready to take a step forward. As long as you try to come to life with, I know it all, I know it, I've solved it all, you're not humble. You've closed yourself off. Your ability to learn, your ability to see a new way is not possible because you think you are the ultimate ego. You understand things on a deeper level than everyone. And we all go through a stage of that. I'm not saying that I've never gone through that. I have. And believe it or not, those were the times that life kind of said to me, okay, all right, cool. You think you've worked it all out? I'm going to show you something that you don't know. And life did. And then that taught me something. Don't be conclusive. Whatever we talk on this channel, And if you haven't subscribed, this is a good time to do that. But let me tell you, whatever we talk on this channel is a discussion, is a beginning. It's a way that we work through things. We approach things not with conclusions. This is the way it works and that's it. Anybody who does that, I'm telling you, is your enemy. In there. They are not with your mindset. They don't understand mindset. When we're dealing with mindset, we need to keep it open. I know everyone wants to hear conclusions and definite answers, but when you do that, you've limited yourself. What might work today might not work tomorrow. I remember in The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, where Lucy enters through to get to Narnia, and she enters through the wardrobe. In the end of the book, the professor tells them Narnia, he tells them something along the lines that to enter Narnia in future, you might need to look for different doors. This time through the wardrobe, another time through another way. And this also reminds me of the story of Jacob and his sons, Joseph. So Joseph is one of the sons, if you don't know the story of Joseph and his brothers. And when they are going to go back to Joseph, they haven't identified that he is Joseph. Jacob tells them to enter from different doors. Don't always enter from the same door. That is one of the biggest wisdoms in life. Don't think that just because something worked today, it's gonna work tomorrow. If it works today, that's good. That's good. Make with it and kind of like have a look, but don't limit yourself. And don't think that because it's worked for you, especially in the psychological realm, don't think it's worked for you, it's going to work for everybody else. So what to do? Remain open. Treat things as a discussion. Treat things as a give and take, even with yourself. Have a plan, go through with it, but if it fails, just understand that there are other ways and try the other door, try the other methods. That way you keep yourself always going back to the drawing board and always going back to try again, and you don't give up. Degloirespace signing out.